Before the Senate and House of Representatives addressed journalists explaining their position on the 2018 budget, we had a chat with the spokesman of the House of Representatives, Namdas, who shed more light on why the National Assembly made several adjustments in the 2018 budget.
Please let us get this very clear, and I think the media should help us in doing that. The makers of the Constitution never envisaged that when a budget or a proposal is laid before the National Assembly, we should return it the way the President or the Executive brought it. If that is the case, there will be no point bringing it to the National Assembly. But the makers of this Constitution knows that there must be a second opinion because there are elected representatives of the people. So for us to tinker with the budget is part of our duty. I am elected like any other 360 members of the House of Reps and 109 senators. We represent constituencies. We know the issues on ground. So when we are working on this budget, you need to work to ensure that every part of this country has fair share of the commonwealth of the nation. And this can only be achieved also through the federal character as it is enshrined in our Constitution, so that nobody is cheated, nobody gets angry. So I think some of the courts are not done in bad faith. They are done in good faith because there are so many constituencies, so many areas, places that if it is not the National Assembly, those who made the budget, who made the proposal to the National Assembly, really do not even think of some of these common men that are around.
Yes, we understand. We know that the Constitution, stipulates that the National Assembly must make some input into the budget. But to tinker with the budget to the tune of 347 billion naira, don't you think that this is a massive amount?
Tinkering, as I said, is part of the job of the national. But it is not done just because we have the right to tinker. But it is done in good faith and in national interest. And I've said it before, go to a village and check. You'll find out that in your community, if care is not taken, if you don't have somebody at the national level from the executive, you are not likely to get anything from the budget. It is only the elected representatives that sometimes look at it passionately and say, okay, we have to provide these people with certain abilities because they are also Nigerians, they brought us here. And I think this is not done in any bad light. I think people should not, we should not exaggerate the situation. It is meant. And then again, the president also said that he's going to provide a supplementary budget, and we welcome that. Not naturally, if you look at the budget and you think that there are things you need to add, we will work expeditiously on the supplementary budget of the president.
Now, the president says that the National Assembly introduced 6,403 projects amounting to 578 billion naira, and that some of these projects were not conceptualized or costed, so it will be difficult to execute.
You see, this is the position of the executive. But I can tell you the position of the legislature. Some of the projects that we have also tinkered with sometimes are something that are not even executed. And sometimes even when provisions are made to the projects that are brought by the executive, at the point of execution, some of these projects suffer. They don't get even implemented the way it is expected. So rather than you leave funds, even when you provide funds for particular projects and it will not be implemented, why can't you take part of the budget, the fund, and take it to other areas? This is very critical. It is not just enough to put money in a project and you achieve 30% implementation or 50% implementation, while the money remains there. If you know that you cannot implement this fully, and we have had experiences, this is not the first time. We have had experiences in the National Assembly where funds are provided for, but at the end of the day, the implementation level is 50%, some 40%. I am not an executive, but I can tell you that it is the executive that implements. Even when we go on oversight and we raise fundamental questions, the implementation is still very low. So now, rather than you leave money in this fund, in this particular project, it is not wrong for you to take part of the fund and take it to other projects that can also achieve certain level of implementation, because the desire is for us to stimulate the economy.
Does this not create problems of uncompleted projects littering across the country?
What do you prefer? Do you prefer us to leave projects that, let's say, if I provide 2 billion or 10 billion on a particular project and you implement it at 40%? So you prefer as a journalist that I should leave that project to be there because it was brought by the executive? Or which one do you prefer, that I take part of that money and I take it to another project that is also receiving the same attention? I think we should look at the spirit. And go and look at the budget is actually a public document. You can lay hands on it and you can see the level of implementation. So that's what I'm saying. There are a lot of projects in Nigeria that are actually looking for attention.
Now, it appears that, both arms of government, the executive and the National Assembly, are working at cross purposes. Because one would expect that the executive and the legislature, the majority in the National Assembly are from in the APC as well as the president. You're all from the same party. And one would expect that there should be some form of, understanding and, negotiations and discussions prior to the presentation of the budget. So why are we seeing all this, drama between both arms of government as regards the budget?
I think people are getting overblowing the matter. As far as we are concerned, we are really working with the executive to achieve the same goal. We have had instances in this country where even the present administration used part of the money that was actually not approved by the National Assembly, but because for critical matters, those funds were released. What did we do? Didn't we also, we raised an alarm, but it actually allowed it to pass. So I think just like the fact that we have the executive, we have the legislature and the judiciary, we should learn to agree that we have different jobs to do and we have to check one another in the spirit of oneness, in the spirit of the nationhood.
Now, the National Assembly increased its 2018 budget by 14.5 billion naira. At this time where there are biting economic challenges in the country, why is the National Assembly doing this at this time?
The budget of the National Assembly used to be 150 billion. And when we came in, 30 billion was cut off. It was 120 billion. In 2016, this same administration cut 5 billion. It was 115 billion. Nobody said anything about the cuts. And in 2017, it was 125 billion. 10 billion was added. Even today, it's 14 billion. It's true. It's 139 billion. It's still not up to 150 billion. And the legislative procedure is something that you need funds. We need funds also to operate. And I will let you know that lawmaking is not just something people think that we do not require funds. Now, are you saying that if other parts of, if the MDS expects certain increases in some of the expenditure, if other infrastructures need to be funded, are you saying that at one point in time we don't need funds to operate? For you to do ordinary public hearing, you require funding. You know that. Public hearing, you require funding. Go and calculate. Even if you, I can tell you at 139.5 billion is less than 3% of the national budget.
But 3% of the budget to just one arm of government?
When even the capital expenditure of just Central Bank of Nigeria, which is controlled by one person, is more than 400 billion? Have you taken your time to check? Have you cared to know what's happening in NNPC? You see, these are things people don't. The budget is something that is a public document. But I think attention is good that Nigerians pay attention to National Assembly. But also extend this to your searchlight on some critical institutions or agencies of government that also one person will be spending money on. When we are 469 of us on less than 3%. I mean, it is not done in good faith, in bad faith. Any government with that legislature is no longer a democracy, it's something else. And it is important for Nigerians to get to know the workings of the legislature. Because each time the legislature is mentioned, it is about money. And people should take their time to visit other parliaments to see. I am a member of an African parliament. I sit in South Africa with 54 countries. So I have a feel. I know how other parliaments work. When people say Nigeria is the highest, I always get shocked because as a member of an African parliament, I have a feel and I know what other parliaments across Africa get. Even this constituency project people talk about, and if you go to Kenya, it is even in the constitution of the country. I mean, it's not something that, so I think because it's a new arm of government, relatively, this is the only time we have 19 years of practice of democracy from civilian to civilian administration without any breach, and therefore, still, we are not as matured as those who are in the executive and the judiciary from time of independence till now. I think this is the situation. But I think gradually Nigerians are appreciating what we are doing.
This belief that, this increase in the National Assembly budget is because of, the 2019 elections, which is around the corner, an opportunity to make funds more available to lawmakers to go for campaigns and politicking.
even if you put funds, is the legislature responsible for the release of funds? And that is why, again, people don't get it right. Budgets are just expectation, and you are at the mercy of the executive to release those funds. It's not as if once you budget, the money is in your pocket. It is not. And I must tell you that for those who don't even know how the National Assembly works, when you say 139.5 billion, they simply divide it by 469 members. So when you go back to the village, people believe this is your share. You see, this is part of the problem we are facing, and really it's not true.